Hi, Joe.
Bruce, how are you?
All right. I guess we're the first ones here.
I think there's quite a few attendees.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But and I see Danny and Amy from the project team. A couple Dannys. Danny, you're cloning yourself.
Yeah. Okay. And Amy Zhu is with you, right?
Correct. Yep.
Do you need her promoted to panelist or she? Oh, she is a panelist. Never
Yeah,
mind.
she is a panelist.
We
Yeah.
have some attendees who I don't. Sally Fisher. Hey, Sally.
On the panelist side, I see quite a few Danny Randalls, and that's all because we're using the same link to sign into this. So
Uh-huh.
if the Danny Randalls who are not in fact Danny Randall could just change their names, this way here we know who's here from the MTA from a subject matter expert standpoint.
Good idea.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Sally. Hey, Jim.
Hello.
Hello. The other James.
Oh, hello, James.
Ah,
I am a new member of Community Board 12, sitting in. I'd like to be more part of this committee, so I thought I'd sit in on this meeting and see.
oh,
how-
absolutely. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
What committees are you on, James?
I'm not on any yet. I just was appointed to the board a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I prefer to be called Jim, so
All right, so you'll be Jim, I'll be James.
fine. Around where I live, among our employees, we have several Georges and several Jorges. It gets very confusing.
Sometimes I call myself Diego.
Oh, I do too. Or you can go further and call yourself Santiago. But some people claim Jim is actually Jaime. So I don't know.
I think Jaime is like Jimmy.
I've been called that also. Hello, Bruce.
Hey, Jim.
So, where is our glorious leader? I'm sure she will show up.
Do we have quorum?
I don't know. I don't have the list of who's on the committee or how many people are on the committee.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think, it's urgent that we start this very minute.
No,
since
no.
Debbie-
I was just wondering if we had to call anybody to get them on.
I don't, again, I'm not good at that kind of detail. So, I'm sure once Debbie arrives and, I think Robin is a member of the committee. I'm getting a call from Debbie. Let's see what
Leo
this is.
Glickman has his hand up.
Hello? You rang?
Hey, Jay. Jay Mazer, he's on the committee.
Hello, Bruce. How are you? How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Chanel, Debbie came in as a regular attendee and she needs to be promoted. Chanel,
Under
you
what
there?
name?
Probably under her name. I don't know. Let me see. No, I think she hung up. Are you there? No, I don't think she's there anymore. I think she came in as an attendee.
She's promoted to the host on this panelist list that I see to the right.
Well, then maybe she's in business. This is Debbie again. Hello. Oh, that may be. Let me just mention. She may be Leo Glickman, which is her husband's name. So promote Leo Glickman, and it's
Yeah, there's a
actually
Leo
Debbie.
Glickman in the attendees with their hand raised.
Right, that's Debbie. So Debbie should be promoted. I mean, Leo Glickman should be promoted since Leo Glickman is actually Debbie. There she is. Leo, you look so much better.
Hi, sorry, I've like taken over whatever, just computers in motion, and I don't know why I was came in on I thought I clicked on a panelist link, so I'm sorry for the delay. Just bear with me as I rename myself. 1 moment, please. Okay, there we go. James Bosley, have you been assigned to this committee, or you're just shopping around a little and visiting us tonight? Oh, unmute.
I'm not on any committees right now, and I'd like to make this my priority committee. So I thought I would sit in on a meeting first to get the lay of the land and to, say that, yes, I've been to this transportation committee, and I love all these people and I want to be on it.
Well, welcome. Let me just do a quick count make sure we have quorum, which we do. Okay, so with that, I'd like to call the June 6th Traffic and Transportation Committee to order. My name is Debbie Nabavian. I'm the chair of this committee. I'd like to first start out by introducing who's here from CB12 and from the board, I'm sorry, from the Traffic and Transportation Committee, and then followed by the board. So first, I see Jim Berlin, Bruce Robertson, Jay Mazer, Robin Cruz. Let's see.
Is Mary on the
Mary
committee?
Anderson. I thought I had,
She's
okay,
here.
great. And from CB12, we have new member James Bosley. We have Sarah Fisher.
Marshall Vanderpool is a public member.
Okay, always glad that Marshall's able to join us. Okay, great. So tonight we have one item on the agenda. That's the MTA is with us to tell us about the ADA accessibility project at the 181st Street A Station, which I know people are eager to hear about. And then before we get started, if I can get my hands on my notes, I just wanted to share a few updates of things that have happened or haven't happened, as the case may be, and then just give a little preview of some stuff that I want to discuss before we adjourn tonight via old business. So some people may know already the Greenway closed today north of 180th or 81st. And while that in part was sort of a New York City parks issue, it did involve streets to the extent that we had asked for, there to be an alternative for riders who would not be able to use the Greenway to get south of Dykeman Street. And then, so what's been announced is not something that most bikers that we've heard from are feeling at all safe with. So I want to come back to that in old business, but just again, as of today, the very much needed 4-month project has kicked off and they've closed the Greenway. And then I think I will see if Team MTA is willing to just offer some clarification, but one other interesting thing that's happened is that MTA has reached out to Parks and Land Use to present some things that relate to the ADA accessibility project that will take place on 168th Street. And then in the first instance, are going to have impacts at Mitchell Square Park. So that's why it's sort of, this reach out occurred to land use and to parks before us. I mean, in this instance, so it's about, I guess, alienation of, I can't remember the alienation on below the park, and then temporary alienation at the northern tip of that park, while I guess the pre-work happens. But maybe when we get to the MTA park, they can just update us on if that's accessibility. My recollection is that's for the one train, but all of this to say it's coming, and all of this to say that I am going to try to make an effort, and if anybody else from the committee would like to do so as well, to be at the Parks Committee, the Parks meeting on 6/14, but we can come back to that. And last, we got a notice, at least came across my way, about the City Bike Station at West 212th Street and 10th Avenue. That is being relocated for long-term temporary basis because of construction, I believe, of the homeless shelter that had been presented in other committees on CB12, and that's a 2 to 3 year project. So in the interim, the City Bike Station is moving to 211th Street and 10th Avenue, and I believe that will be in the roadbed. Again, we'll come back during old business to talk a little bit further about the Greenway closure, and then some issues with permanent outdoor dining and Quisqueya Plaza and stuff like that. So with that, welcome Maria Luna. We have added one more community board, a 12 board member. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to hand this to, is Marcus, are you kicking off, or Joe? Who is Danny?
Yeah, well, Joe's going to do the presentation, but I'll just say hi to everybody. Hello, Community Board 12. It's been a while. Just to mention, Debbie, that Parks alienation, yes, we're going to be presenting to Parks Department. We've already gotten the legislation. At the time that I reached out to you, we were kind of looking for support, but the legislation passed. And what we're going to be presenting on the 14th, just to kind of let you know where we are with that, what the project entails, give you an overview. And, you know, it's not happening tomorrow, but you'll get to ask all your questions when I have my experts in the room to do that presentation. But yeah, the alienation is really a subsurface thing. It's not, the only time that there'll be an effect on the park is during construction. Once we're done and the elevator's in, then everything is below ground. So I don't want to get too deep in the woods on that. But if you can join on the 14th at the Parks Committee, you can find out more information about that. We'll go through the presentation, and everybody will be informed. So tonight we're here to present an update on the 181st Street ADA project, which my colleague Joe O'Donnell from our Capital Construction Department will kind of go through the presentation. And of course, you know, when that's through, we'll be more than happy to take questions. Joseph.
Very good. And just before we pass to you, Joe, I just want to recognize Leo Jimenez, this committee's assistant chair, has also joined the meeting.
Hey,
Okay.
Deb.
Hey, Leo. Leo, you're gonna be able to take notes?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now to you, Joe.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Community Board, for having us, obviously. And then just to dovetail a little bit off of what Marcus said, I know you spoke about sort of process with regard to notification about the 168th Street stuff. As you all know, or well, no, certainly Debbie, with the shortened session this year because of all of the primary activity, this was really sort of a last minute rush to the finish line to sort of get this legislation passed. So whereas we might have had some more notification and been able to get out and talk about this or socialize this a little bit more with the rush to the shortened session, things really went down to the 11th hour in the last week or 10 days on this stuff. So.
But let me just ask you, I know I keep interrupting you as you keep trying to start the presentation. To be clear, I was presuming, but let me just clarify that the ADA accessibility project for 168th Street will be, I presumed, presented to TNT at some later point. And what you're presenting on the 14th just relates to the alienation issue in Mitchell Square Park. Is that right? Or are you presenting the whole thing at the Parks Committee?
Well, Debbie, to Joe's point, that's why we were presenting to Land Use and Parks, because it was tied to the legislation, but we'll be more than happy to come back to the Transportation Committee and present this as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I mean, normally I'm not one to have you go to two places, but I mean, in terms of like, I'm presuming this, again, it's a more focused presentation to Parks.
It is, but there will be a level setting of sorts on the project overall to explain why this is needed.
Yeah, okay, all right. But is this the overall kickoff of the project? Like
What-
it's now starting, or is this kind of pre-work?
Still pre-work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Thanks. And again, thanks for everybody. I'm joined by a host of folks. I see some folks in both the panelist and attendee list. So we have a whole host of subject matter experts here to talk to you tonight about the ADA project going on here at 181st Street, as well as some of our colleagues, because there are multiple projects going on at 181st Street, as you all know. There's also an escalator project. These projects are separate and distinct, different project teams, different contractors, different scope and benefits. So we're here to talk about the ADA project tonight, but obviously acknowledging the fact that it is all one MTA, and these projects are all being delivered by the MTA, and therefore, the general public doesn't make the distinction between project CEOs and contractors and so on and so forth. It's just the MTA who can give them the answers on these things. We do have some subject matter experts in the room tonight too, who will be able to answer some questions, and we're going to touch upon the escalator work as well in the overall discussion of our project here, the 181st ADA project. So with that preamble, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, let me get this full screen mode. Can everybody see that? Marcus, give me a nod if you can see that, because I can see you. Oh, you just shut your.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, thank you, Mary. Marcus shut off his camera just as I asked for a nod. So as mentioned, here tonight to talk about the ADA accessibility upgrades and station improvements at 181st Street for the A-Line. This project is an ADA project that will also include some station improvements. It is part of a larger 8 stations ADA accessibility bundle. I'll talk a little bit about that and the overall project, and then drill down to use a construction term, an unfortunate pun, if you will, about the specifics of what the activity will be at 181st Street. This larger bundle of projects, as I mentioned, is an ADA bundle, but it'll also have structural rehabilitation and system upgrades. This contract was awarded in December of 2021. It is our second ADA bundle. Our first ADA bundle was advanced over COVID. I guess technically we're still in the throes of sorts, but really in the middle of things back in 2020. Work there got going in earnest in 2021. So similarly, this project was awarded in December of 2021. The contractor was given their notice to proceed in January of 22, January 26th to be specific, and that gives them sort of the green light to advance. This is a design build project, so what they're going to be doing largely at the onset here is confirming the assumptions that our team has made to bring the design to the point that it has to get it awarded. They're going to confirm those assumptions, do some test pits, borings, things of that nature, to make sure that they confirm the conditions, try to eliminate any curveballs that may be found once we get out there and get going with the work. The overall project schedule for all of these 8 stations is September of 2024. There is a specific schedule for 181st Street, which we'll get to in a little bit. As you all know, the ADA accessibility is a priority for the MTA. There was over $5 billion that was earmarked as part of the historic 2020 to 24 capital program. So this is moving us in the right direction. This is a second bundle, as I know, to help us get to the point where there are no more than 2 stations between ADA accessible stops for the riding public. Additionally, I mentioned this is our second bundle. We are bundling projects to achieve economies of scale and cost savings. So we're finding that by being able to bundle this work together, not only can we achieve better timelines, but also the cost efficiencies within this work. A little bit about some of the other stations that are going to be seeing work in this bundle. 8th Avenue is going to get an ADA elevator on the N train for the Sea Beach line. Woodhaven Boulevard is getting ADA elevators and station improvements similar to 181st Street. They're going to get 2 elevators for the J and the Z on the Jamaica line. Westchester Square is going to get ADA elevators and station improvements, 3 elevators for the 6 train on the Pelham line. Here at 181st Street, we're going to get 2 ADA elevators and an ADA upgrade of the passageway to Overlook Terrace, and that's for the A line. On the A train on the 8th Avenue line. There are 2 stations that will be receiving elevator upgrades, so replacements of the existing elevators. That's Marcy Avenue and Flushing Avenue, so 5 replacement elevators part of this station, 11 new elevators and 5 replacements. Court Square is going to see a new elevator for the G on the Crosstown line, and Queensboro Plaza will be getting 2 new elevators for the 7 and W on the Astoria Flushing line. So about tonight's topic, 181st Station, as you know, it's a below ground station on the 8th Avenue line. It is underneath Fort Washington Avenue in Manhattan. You don't need to have me call out the box to you on the screen there, but as you can see, between 190th Street, 175th Street on the A line. Some of the customer benefits for this work, or that are going to be achieved as a result of this work, along with the improved station components, there's going to be 2 new elevators, new mezzanine to platform elevators, new ADA boarding areas, new platform replacement. As I mentioned, ADA upgrade of the ramp to Overlook Terrace, and reconstruction of 2 platform staircases. Some of the general scope is non-ADA scope will be reconfiguration of the mezzanine control area. There will be historic preservation elements associated with this station. The Overlook Terrace entrance door will be replaced. The mezzanine stairs and railings and the tile will all be done underneath historic preservation guidance. There will be structural improvements to the station, new fire alarm and new CCTV. We'll be upgrading the passageway. There will be a new public address system and new digital customer information screens. So what is the work or where is the work really taking place? So there are 3 mezzanine to street elevators, which are accessible at 184th Street. and Fort Washington Avenue. You can see those currently ELs 117, 118, and 119. Those elevators will remain in service throughout this work. You also have the work to the Overlook Terrace ramp on the 184th Street side of this station. So the two, I guess, salmon colored dots on the right side of your screen. On the left side of your screen, you see 188 First Street, Fort Washington Avenue entrance. We're going to be seeing new stair work there. So you have stair S3, S4, S2, and S1. At the mezzanine level, you're going to see where the ramp work is being done and the ADA path. If you see the accessible path will now take you across this hashed out line on the 184th Street side of the station. So utilizing those existing elevators, 117, 118, and 119, customers will be able to go to the left to the new elevator 518 and 517 to access the platform level, or they'll be able to go to the right to the newly ADA accessible ramp to Overlook Terrace. In order to get to the ADA accessible boarding area, similarly to the previous screen, you'll be able to follow the hashed line to the center or just about the center of the platform level for the new ADA boarding areas. So those are both on the northbound and southbound platform areas. Also in this section, there will be replacement of the platform edge. And then, as I noted, reconstruction of the stairs here, P15 and P16 as part of this project. With regard to the escalator rehabilitation, that project got underway last month. There was a bit of a rush to get that project going, largely dictated by one of the escalators that was already out of service and deemed to be unrepairable. So therefore, it was determined that since that escalator was already out, it was an opportune time to get this work going. There is stair work. The green area is the escalator work. So that's going to be the replacement of those 3 escalators and the associated equipment. Because of the age of these 3 escalators and the replacement models that are coming in, the new models that are coming in to replace these older non highly functioning models, they're a little bit longer. The entry and exit portions of the existing escalators of the new escalators are wider than the existing footprint of the old escalators. So these escalators, there isn't an opportunity here to keep one in service or 2 in service while we work on one, because of the fact that the new elements will encroach upon the existing elements, to the side, as well as the configuration of the machine room that powers these escalators. There is also the stair work to the north on your screen. These stairs are presently operational. They will stay in operation, or folks will be able to use those stairs while we're doing the escalator work. Once the escalator work is completed, we'll then transition to the stair work on that side, so that there is always a path out, whether it be ADA accessible or not. Here on the 181st Street side, that escalator work is anticipated to take about 9 months. And as I mentioned, once that wraps up, we will follow on with the stairway work. And that work is anticipated to take about 2 months. All the while this work is going on, the escalator or the elevators at the 184th Street side of the station will remain operational. This gives you a little bit better visual of the existing and new footprints of the escalators. It sort of illustrates what I just spoke to, also shows you the configuration of the machine room. So if you see the layout of the existing escalator, there's about a 10.5 foot sort of entry portion to the existing escalator before it starts its elevation, and then the exiting portion is about 9 feet 9 inches. The new footprint that's coming in is almost the reverse. The bottom landing area is about 9'11", and the top portion, the top landing area, is 11'1". Similarly, if you notice on the bottom portion of the left side of the screen, the existing width of the escalators at those landing areas. So it's 24 inches wide. The new escalators are 32 inches wide. So it would be encroaching upon the mechanical elements of the adjacent escalators. So that is why we can't, we've been asked the question in the past why we couldn't do one at a time or take two out and keep one in service. Similarly, or in conjunction to those complications, is the fact that there is this one machine room that serves all three of these escalators that needs to be replaced and upgraded in order to accommodate the new escalators. There are staging areas that are going to be utilized for both, well, not both as in concurrently. There are separate staging areas for the escalator replacement project, as well as the elevator project. At 181st Street and Fort Washington Avenue, there is an escalator staging area that is approximately 60 feet by 8 feet. Excuse me. And then on the Overlook Terrace side, there is an escalator storage and materials area that is approximately 170 feet by 10 feet. Oops, sorry. The escalator staging areas, the one at 181st Street and Fort Washington Avenue, that temporarily enclosed staging area will be erected in June, and that's needed for the escalator tools and equipment. The Overlook Terrace side, that was temporarily is a temporary enclosure which was erected in May, and that's needed for the escalator staging of the actual escalators themselves. You can see here on the screen the yellow area that's indicated by the hashed out and shaded box is the 181st Street Fort Washington staging area, and then the staging area on the lower portion of the screen, which is actually an example from a previous project, but this is the same area that this project would be utilizing for its materials and escalator staging. There's extensive coordination going on between the two projects. As I mentioned, they are taking particular care to make sure that the escalator work at the 184th Street side of the station does not interfere with the existing elevators there, so that there is an ADA pathway to the surface while the escalators are being repaired on the south side of the station. Similarly, like I said, there will always be a path out at the south side of the station because the stair and escalator work will not be taking place in concurrence. It will be done consecutively. So in May of 2022, escalators 117, 118, and 119 were closed. Those will go until approximately February of 2023, the work there, when they will be placed back in service. At that point, the mezzanine stairway will close. The ramp to Overlook Terrace will be closed. Excuse me. And then the escalators will be back in service. In April of 23, the mezzanine stairway that was closed will be reopened. And then in June of 23, the Overlook Terrace newly ADA accessible ramp will be opened in June of 2023. And then finally, in July of 2023, the new elevators and stairs, which are the crux of this project, ELs 517 and 518, along with stairs P15 and 16, will be placed in service. Excuse me. So for the elevator project, there are some street level impacts as well. There will be temporary impact, due to an enclosed street staging area along Fort Washington Avenue. That will be constructed here in early June. There is coordination with the property owner adjacent to Overlook Terrace for the entrance staging. We've already been in discussions there. If you can see here, the elevator project street impacts on the Fort Washington area. There are anticipated to be 7 parking spots that would be lost while we are utilizing this storage and work zone area. And then on the 184th Street and Washington Avenue station entrance, that is going to stay open throughout construction. So while we are working on that entrance, it will always be maintained. The DOT permits for the Fort Washington Avenue staging area have been approved through August of 2022. Structural work for the platform, the reconstruction of the stairs, went ahead one too far, and the elevator installation. That's the 184th Street Fort Washington Station entrance, as well as the work zone that you see on the screen here. The parking lane closure for the staging area along Fort Washington Avenue will be marked out by water-filled plastic barriers, which will be affixed with chain link fencing. And then there will be concrete barrier along the street side here. Station work that begins here in 2022. It'll be the stair demolition, the stair installation, platform edge repair, and then ultimately the elevator installation. The MPT here is approximately 8 foot wide by 120 feet long, as I mentioned, and roughly about 8 foot high. There's no impacts to the sidewalk here, so there is no anticipated interruption of pedestrian flow to and from the 184th Street and Fort Washington Avenue entrance. There are also no anticipated impacts to any of the bus stops here. The Overlook Terrace entrance and door replacement and ramp reconstruction will be taking place in this area. As I mentioned, we're coordinating with the adjacent residents to utilize some privately owned space for staging. This is 2023 work that will be for ramp reconstruction and the entrance door replacement. There are no impacts to this particular area for any pedestrian parking or transit uses while we conduct this work. Some of the service related impacts and alternatives while we conduct this work. The A train will not be available at 181st Street during select weekends from 9:45 p.m. on Friday through 6:45 a.m. on Monday, and weeknights. This is overnight interruption. It's anticipated to begin in the summer of 2022, and the preliminary service plan, which I'll mention, which is still subject to change, would have the 168th Street to Far Rockaway, Mott Avenue, or 168th Street to Ozone Park, Lefferts Boulevard, operating on the local between 168th Street and 145th Street. The C operates between 145th Street and Euclid Avenue. There will be, during these overnight and weekend operations, while the service is being impacted, there will be free shuttle buses, and there will be one at 207th Street to 168th Street, stopping at 207th Street, Dyckman Street, 181st Street, and 175th Street. There will be another that stops 190th Street to 168th Street, stopping at 190th, 181st, 175th, and 168th Street. There will be notifications posted with these alternative service options prior to any of these outages, well in advance, so that folks can make necessary accommodations and be aware. We'll also provide you with those flyers and notifications prior to these service impacts, so that you can post to the website and update not only the full board, but the constituency as well. So some of the scheduling, the more detailed scheduling for this work, for the Queensbound platform, the mezzanine to platform elevator, structural work is beginning or has begun in May, and is anticipated to last through March, until March of 2023. That structural work, while that structural work is taking place, underpinning and excavation will begin for the elevators. That begins in August and takes us out through October of 2022. The elevator installation for the Queensbound platform will take place from October of 2022 and go through July of 2023. Similarly, for the inbound or the inward bound platform, the structural work will be on the same schedule as the above Queensbound work from May of 22 through March of 23. Underpinning and excavation for the elevator here will take place from October of 22 through January of 2023. The elevator installation for the inward bound platform will be from January of 23 through July of 23. The north mezzanine stairs and control area, that will be the platform stair reconstruction will go from June of 2022 through January of 23. And then the reconfiguration or the ADA compliance element of the overlook terrace ramp, that will take place from February of 23 through June of 23. So again, that ramp, the existing ramp, will be available while the work at the southbound side of the station is taking place. Obviously, you have several contacts here from the MTA between Marcus Book and Danny Randell. Obviously, myself from MTA Construction and Development, but this project will also have a dedicated email address as well as a dedicated project hotline for questions and concerns. This is really for questions and concerns, or for instance, you would email the 8 subway station ADA improvements at samschwartz.com address if you wanted to get on any distribution lists or mailing lists for our project updates. So you would want to contact or email that address so that we have your contact information. But if it's an emergency, your first course of action, if it's a life or death emergency, would be to call 911. But if it's an emergency related to this project, I would suggest that you reach out to Marcus, Danny, or myself. We have a direct line to the project executives for both the escalator as well as the elevator project. If it's for your day in and day out, run-of-the-mill questions on, some of the work that's going on, the nature of the work, some scheduling questions or updates, feel free to utilize this. It is a 24-hour hotline, and the email is obviously 24/7, but there isn't necessarily someone sitting there manning it or staffing it 24/7. So we'll get back to you if you reach out to these elements, within 24 to 48 business hours. So if it's a true emergency, I suggest that you reach out to your MTA contacts who you already have contact information for. With that, Chair, I would turn it back over to you for any questions or comments. As I note, we have the project managers for both the escalator and elevator projects here, and some of the engineering team, as well as the communications consultant teams for the project. So we should be able to tackle any of the questions that you have, and if not, we'll certainly get back to you with those answers.
Thank you so much, Joe. I do want to welcome Danny Randell, also from the MTA, and with Marcus, sort of our more day-to-day contacts now, for NECB 12 stuff. So we have a couple of hands. I will just say, thank you for being here. This is quite a lot of information. We are always thrilled to have ADA accessibility projects. As you know, we have the deepest stations. We have a heck of a lot of topography to navigate. And to see some of these projects come online is really meaningful for the committee because it's been a long time coming. I'm going to start question-wise with Jay Mazer, followed by Mary Anderson, and then Jim Burlett.
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, about the exit and entrance doors on Overlook Terrace that were replaced around 10 years ago. There used to be 3 doors each for exit and entrance, and there are now 2. And I was wondering what exactly you're going to do with those doors. And I also wanted to know about passenger safety while these elevators are being constructed, particularly during rush hours, and hopefully soon subway ridership will again be pre-pandemic levels. And the other question is just my ignorance. In terms of the shuttle buses, which buses for what duration will be on Fort Washington and which buses will be on Broadway?
Thank you, Jay, for those questions. So trying to tackle those in order. Kamar or Mohammed, do you have the specifics on the entrance doors and the historic preservation elements, or just the upgrades and how that plays into the historic preservation oversight? What we're going to be doing to upgrade those?
So, Kamar, I can, let me take this question. So if I understand the question correctly, we are talking about the doors on the Overlook Pass side?
Correct. Yeah. Mr. Mazer indicated they went from
Right.
3 doors to about 2 about 10 years ago. And
Right.
what are we going to be changing now?
All right. So we actually, the consultant AECOM just finished a survey of the historic elements in the entire station and will present this to SHPO. I will raise this issue to them to see that why would these doors changed from 3 to 2. But in any event, these doors have to be made ADA accessible. So the width of these doors was going to change regardless of the number of doors. And just as a side note, also the doors on the other side, the Fort Washington Avenue side, are also going to be changed to become ADA accessible. These are 3 doors on that side.
So Mohammed, do you know, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mazer, I don't mean to speak for you, but when now when we upgrade these 2 doors, is the configuration going to stay at 2 doors, or is it going to change because of the width of the doors being changed in order to accommodate ADA access?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, Joe. I will have to ask the design team and I'll get you an answer right
All right,
away.
we'll get back to you on that particular one. While we have you, Mohammed, with regard to his question about safety of existing riders while we're constructing the ADA elevators, and I presume as well the stair components. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the steps that we're taking to ensure safety? I mean, part of that is why we're going to be closing that mezzanine stair and closing off the mezzanine, correct?
That's correct. I mean, part of our plan is to erect full height barricades that contain the work zone so that there is a full separation between the public and the contractor, except for doors to egress and ingress the work zones. And these barricades are going through a rigorous review by the design team, by the code compliance team, by the Office of System Safety, and by the Office of Operations and Planning. Once these are approved, we can start the construction looking at next week. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mohammed. And there was he had one more question. Mr. Mazer had one more question relative to the service or the alternate service and the shuttle buses. Marcus or Danny, I don't know. I'm trying to scan through both the panelist and attendee list, but I don't know who is joining us from ops planning tonight. If we did have someone who could speak to the alternate service plan.
I mean, usually we've been through, we've seen the movie. One of those, I think we can infer is the first one I think is Broadway and the second one is Fort Washington. But to Jay's question, just to confirm that, because
Yeah.
you have Route 1 and you have Route 2, but it doesn't actually say where they're going.
Right.
We probably don't have anybody from operations planning, but Debbie, I believe you're absolutely correct, but I'll confirm that. But it is the same movie you've seen before in terms of those shuttle buses.
And again, those will only be in operation while we're in the midst of the actual weekend closure. So it's not for the entirety of the project. It's only while that work is taking place on those dedicated weekends and overnights.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to Mary's question or comment.
My issue was I saw something or heard something on the presentation about ADA compliant stairs. Is that?
Well, so we're going to be reconfiguring the stairs, both the stairs north on the 181st Street side adjacent to the escalators, as well as upgrading stairs to the mezzanine level. So when some people eyebrows raise when you hear ADA compliant stairs, but what it is it's largely the handrails. There are some times widening of the stairs as well as alterations to the rise and run of the stairs themselves. But in this particular case, it's largely relative to the handrails. It makes it more navigable.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Berlin.
Hello, welcome. By the way, Marcus, my friend Herbie Lambert says hello. I
My friend
have.
too.
Oh, that's true. We've all three of us live in the same housing project, if you want to call it that. So I have a question, and then there's also something I want to verify. When you showed the picture of the new escalators, it seems that there are still 3 escalators. This is the one from when you're going into them. There's still 3 escalators, but 2 of them are going to be wide and the one in the middle is going to be narrow. Is that observation correct? And my other question is, and then you can just answer them, is you spoke about a boarding area for, accessible or whatever. I'm not familiar with that. So if you could tell us what these boarding areas are about.
Sure. You're talking about the platform boarding area, yeah?
Correct.
Okay. So first question on the escalators, Mo or Pratik, did you want to address the width of the new escalators relative to the existing escalators? Did we lose our escalator?
You had the picture.
Yeah. This one.
That
right?
one.
Yep. So do we lose our escalator team? But you are correct. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why that middle escalator remains at 24 while the 2 outside get widened. I don't know.
I can tell you that. That's all the room they have.
Right. Well, I'm sure that's true too. But
Right.
why the outside one isn't 24 and the other 2 adjacent are, why it was in this particular configuration. I don't know. Like I said, I do know we had a couple of our escalator team on. So let me just see if I can.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine just because you have obviously one for up and one for down that will be more ADA compliant. And then the middle one can be the swing one depending on needs. And then I guess the presumption is you would always have an ADA accessible one available, but that one would have to go both ways.
Mo, do you, I think I turned your mic on.
Okay, because I was talking to myself. All right, so the question was, the 2 on the outside are getting widened from 24 to 32 inches. on the escalators.
And is there any rhyme or reason to the configuration why the outsides are widened and the interior is not? Or, I mean, you know, it was alluded to, it's simply a matter of space that you couldn't make all three wider, but, you know, if there was a rhyme or reason to the configuration.
Right, there's no rhyme or reason, it's just geometry. We have solid walls on both sides, and that's, I guess, where the best fit was on the ends.
Great, thank you. And then with regard to the question, Mohammed, not Mo, but Mohammed, with regard to the question about the ADA platform boarding area and what that entails. Let me just get, oh, so here we are. So that platform boarding area makes it easier. It is sloped in order for, I mean, if I'm correct, I don't want to speak out of school. So Mohammed, please jump in, or Kamar. But that area is sloped, which makes it easier for folks with accessibility needs to get on and off the train.
That's correct, Joe. That area is it's a 40-foot area at the middle, towards the middle of the platform, which is also visible to the train conductors. So if anyone needs assistance, they'll be able to visually see them on both platforms. So that's typically the boarding area, a 40-foot section on both platforms.
Okay, now that I'm back, tell me a really short version of what you just said. I somehow disconnected from the internet, if you don't mind.
Which one did you miss? The boarding area?
The boarding area, yeah.
The boarding area, right.
Okay, all right. So the boarding areas are two 40-foot sections on the platform, at the middle of the platform. That's right where the conductor is positioned, on the conductor's position on the train. So if someone needs assistance, they'll be able to see the conductor and they'll be able to communicate that way.
Thank you.
And this particular area is common throughout the stations or the system. So and the concept is, if someone in, say, wheelchair get on the train at the boarding area, whichever station they get off, they will be there. There's a 99% chance that they'll be at the next boarding area. So in terms of access, with the gaps on the train and everything, they will be within tolerance.
That was very helpful. Thank you very much. And I'm so glad you're doing it, because one of these days, all of us are probably gonna either need it or want to use it, this additional access.
So wise, James, wise man.
Thank you.
So one thing, I mean, I had the benefit of seeing this presentation in a just slightly less detailed form last week or the week before. And remember, there was a little discussion about, at that time, you didn't know if the ramp coming from Overlook would remain open for the entirety of the project, or whether there would be some considerations that would require you to close that access point entirely. And if I was following along this week, you're saying we should be able to keep it open the entire time?
No. What I was saying was that work is not going to get going until 2023, until after the escalator work. But it is, right now, we are working under the presumption that it will need to be closed full time unless something changes, and we would certainly come back to you with that. But the presumption is now it's going to need to be closed for the entirety of the ADA accessibility upgrade. But, you know, if something changes, we will certainly update the board.
All right, so, I mean, that'll, when we get closer, and I'm sure we'll have a check-in, you know, for the 2023 work, but it was, as some of the MTA team might know and remember, when the elevators were being replaced, there was a huge response from the community about losing the sort of the free flyover to get you up the hill, or between Overlook and Fort Washington Avenue. And then the result of which there was a shuttle to get you, from Overlook over to Fort Washington, which, I mean, I think had mixed results, but which obviously need to be considered, but we've never been completely without that entrance. So I think we'll just need to kind of work through that a little bit, you guys with us, about what that's going to look like and what we're going to be telling people to do and all that.
But sorry, Debbie, without which entrance?
Overlook.
So without the ramp or without the, okay.
So the entrance, Joe, so
Right,
when
right.
we're placing the
Yeah.
elevator, there's no
Right.
way to get to the top of the hill.
Understood. Yeah, no, I wasn't making the distinction between 184 and Overlook. So because 184 is not going to close at all. So that's
Right. No,
Yeah.
understood. But
right.
there's a huge amount,
Yeah.
there are plenty of people who use that flyover without, not in relation to taking the subway. And it's really a street for us, that live nearby. So, so promise me y'all come back when we're getting ready for those latter phases.
No, absolutely. We'll be back as this design and as this project progresses. This is just the beginning of a very dedicated dialogue to this board and to this community on this project and the escalator project, but also as means and methods may change, as the work changes, as we go from one phase of work to another, we'll be happy to come back and provide updates.
Great. We have one question from our attendee audience, Dave Tom. Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Tom. Hi, Tom. Hey, Dave.
Hi, hello, how are you? Dave Tom, Inwood resident, professional engineer. So very, very good project. Great to hear about. Thrilled, understood the whole presentation. That's wonderful. The concern I have is more the overlapping nature of several large projects at once. So the subway closures on weekends for the A train for the community of Inwood are starting this summer, you said? I think your slide said summer 2022?
Correct, yep.
Okay, so, we've been through a lot with the one train shutdowns over the last 3 years for work on that line. And the Broadway Bridge project is still ongoing. That's another major DOT project. So I want to make sure there's coordination so that the A train and the one train do not shut down at the same time, because you have a community of 45,000 people up here that still need train service on the weekends. And on top of all that, the shuttle buses will be going up Broadway, which later in this meeting we're going to talk about, because we just dumped the entirety of the Hudson River Greenway onto Broadway because of another DOT project, which is the retaining walls on the Henry Hudson Parkway. So there's a lot of overlapping detours and shutdowns, and I'm worried that that's going to have a cumulative effect that's going to be much more negative than what you're seeing just through the single lens of this one project.
So Dave, I will just say that, that's what our operations planning division does. They make sure to protect. If we're taking out and creating a weekend shutdown on the A, we would not take the one unless there was some extraordinary situation, which I don't anticipate. So look for that. I think that's something that aspect you won't have to worry about. That piece of it. So what I'm saying is when we're having those weekend shutdowns on the A, the number one will be operating.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tom. That's a great, I just did it again. Oh my God.
It's okay.
I do have a relative who's Tom, T-H-O-M, and I think that's partly why
I have two first names. Don't sweat it.
I know, but I don't do that with you. Okay, so it looks like that is it for questions on this. So let's keep in touch, I guess, Marcus, Danny, and I. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you to the whole MTA team for the level of detail of this presentation. And for you, you know, and for bringing the whole team. We really appreciate it. This is a lot in a very small space. But we'll look forward to the results. Jim, did you have something else? Or is that?
Yes, I did. Maybe I wasn't totally paying attention. I was unaware that the Overlook Terrace entrance was going to be completely closed at some point. And I just want to reinforce what Debbie said, that this is the same situation, essentially, of access for this group of old people who use that elevator because there's a senior center down on Bennett Avenue, but a lot of the people who come to the senior center for lunch, for example, you know, use the elevator. So that's why we made such a fuss at the time. And in fact, the seniors actually had a march. It was fascinating to watch. They were just with their walkers and their canes and signs. It was great. But that's why we were very insistent about a shuttle bus at the time. Now, that need for access hasn't changed. And this is just my thinking, but I want to anticipate because we want to go where we're going. As I understand it, what you will be doing at the Overlook Terrace entrance is reconfiguring the ramp, the current ramp that's there, which is probably too steep or not steep enough. Well, it can't be not steep enough, it's too steep. So it is conceivable, and this is something I would like to direct your thinking at, since this is just construction. And I think you may be also right now, and I'm talking about what I see, right? Most of the staging for a lot of it is going to come in from 184th Street because you've taken out 3 turnstiles, you've taken out one of the entrance doors at the moment, and a lot of stuff. That'll all be done. And so it might be possible, again, I'm very good at might be possible, and then some poor engineer has to make it possible. It might be possible to do this reconfiguring of the ramp, which is what I think you're going to do, in 2 stages, half and half, which would permit continuing entrance from Overlook Terrace for the very large community. And it's not just the old people I was talking about. They're, you know, families with strollers and little kids, you name it all. So that's something I'd like to, you know, anticipate now, because it might be possible to do it, in which case we will have our cake and eat it too. And of course, we will love the MTA more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we did touch upon it. What Debbie brought up a similar, when she brought up her concern, is right now, as the project presently conceived, it would, the ramp to that entrance would be completely shut down for approximately 6 months from, you know, early February to mid-February. So roughly, you know, February to July-ish. That doesn't mean
maybe you can do it half and half.
What's that?
Maybe you can do it half and half as I'm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
right.
Was my next point. As we continue to advance the discussion and the design, that option is on the table, or we continue to look at that, whether that is a viable option, and we would certainly be back to you with any changes to the plan.
And James, we lessons learned from the first time around, so we won't be caught unawares, and there won't be any need for any, you know, protests or marches.
Oh, I think it was an absolute tonic for these people. I mean, I went and observed it. They were doing their thing. It was beautiful.
Right.
It's so nice seeing you. I haven't seen you in a while, except for last time.
Yes, sir. Good to see you too. So we'll definitely come and update you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll say is, this is quite a big project in ADA accessibility. And I certainly am holding Edith Prentice in memory as we sit here and discuss this, and I'm sure other people do as well. But actually, I do have one more question before MTA steps off the call. ADA accessibility at Dyckman, where are we with that project? I know it's like, are we almost done? Are you almost done there?
Yeah, that was moving along. I actually, as you know, it's coincidental that and not even in anticipation of this meeting, I've asked for an update on all 8 of those stations. That's part of that ADA bundle 1 that I referenced early on in this project, or in this conversation. So that one is well underway. And since it was only the one elevator, it was going to be moving quicker than the entire, the entire scope of the project, similar to some of these independent schedules on this one. But it's supposed to be completed. Trying to think off the top of my head whether it was the end of 22 or beginning of 23, but let me double check and get back to you. But there haven't been any issues there. That's been moving along on schedule. So.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks again, Team MTA. And with that, I guess we're going to move into some old business topics.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. Bye, Joe.
Everybody be well.
Bye, Danny. Bye,
Thank you.
Marcus.
Bye.
Mo,
Thank you.
Mohammed, Kmar.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to catch people up, and I know we have a few attendees here tonight who have been active on this issue. Actually, Chanel, can you promote Emily Marte as well? I'm just seeing her on the attendee side of things. Let me just make note. So, Greenway closure. Obviously, a lot of residents and cyclists anticipated this issue, and that was how, what would parks come up with along with DOT in terms of an alternative for cyclists who can no longer come down the Greenway from Dyckman to 180th, where it's open again. And what the result of that was, take Broadway. I think the universal feeling is, no, I would be killed on Broadway on my bicycle. Allegra Legrand has been spent a lot of time on this issue along with some other people, and in fact had a really eloquent piece in Streets Blog on this, sort of summing up all the issues. And so I want to give people an opportunity to weigh in on this. I will say, and I know this is really unorthodox, but I'm just gonna say it. If I were, I'm not a cyclist, but it appears to me now that your choice is, I'm not going to bike for 4 months. So if that's the way I was commuting or something I did a lot to get around town, I just can't do it. Or it has been suggested, but I can't even imagine this, that some people will take that stub portion from Dyckman that goes down like a little ways and then kind of walk along the Amtrak tracks. Again, not safe, not anything. So there's, what's in front of people of what they might do is really scary, or not a good answer. So I have only 2 ways that I see that somebody could remotely get from here to there. And that is, one, you go through the park, but as Steve Simon reminds me, how are you going to get up some of that incline? So I don't know the answer, but I just think people will be finding their way potentially through the park. And the other one is, the only option I see is people need to stay on the sidewalk on the on the west side of Broadway from Dyckman down to either picking up Bennett or going to 181st. I'm not even talking, and then people are sort of meant to go down 181st Street, which is a complete zoo also. So, and I wouldn't feel safe on. But basically we're in a situation where there's no good answer. And a lot of people are upset by this, and there's no silver bullet here. I don't think there was any good answer, like our streets are, or what our streets are. But I think people, again, we knew this was coming. Cyclists knew this was coming, and it just doesn't feel good. Jim?
I just wanted to point out an additional hazard for people who might think of traveling along the Amtrak property. And that is you could be arrested for trespassing by Amtrak. They don't want people there because it's dangerous and they will keep you out. And if they learn that there is traffic there, I'm sure they will put in enforcement. So,
Yeah.
and as Debbie pointed out, in fact, if you've ever been next to a train, this is not really where you want to be. Thank you.
Yeah, just a lot of ways of saying like, this isn't good. You're left with a lot of bad options. So from going to the attendees, hi, Elizabeth. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, not about this. I wanted to talk about traffic on 179th Street going to the bridge from Fort Washington, Broadway, and it's a nightmare. The neighborhood has become a total nightmare, and there is no traffic cop anywhere, none. So people are in the box. People are not letting anybody go. The horns are going. It is a very, very bad and dangerous situation. The other dangerous situation is the unlicensed food distributors who I want to be able to make a living, obviously, but they ride up on the sidewalk. They ride in the different direction from the traffic, and they do pose a danger on those motor scooters. So the traffic in the neighborhood, and I think it's more than ironic that it's Edonis that was named head of traffic for the city. So, but
okay.
we're in our local zone, and I hope that traffic, your group, can look at this a little more intensely.
So unfortunately, I mean, the issues on the backups caused throughout the neighborhood, both all the way up Fort Washington, and 181st Street and 179th Street, and from Broadway from about 179th going around, and then the neighborhood gets completely locked up. This is not a DOT issue. It is a New York NYPD traffic enforcement issue. It is, so it's not this committee. Through the congressman's office, he had written to the head of the traffic enforcement command, which is separate from the precinct command. And there were uniformed cops for a while, but now things are building again with summer traffic. And so I will certainly make my colleague at public safety aware of the rising issue, but also plan to raise it again with the congressman. And we have been hearing, and actually, Maria, maybe you can just sort of keep me honest on this, about making sure that we kind of make the connections that need to be made with our public safety partners. But we've been hearing time and time again about the issue of scooters and electrified bikes, or just regular bikes, with delivery people using the sidewalks. And again, there's not a lot we can do insofar as it's an enforcement issue, but I think, again, and then I want to get back to what we were discussing about in terms of the Greenway alternative. But we have this very interconnected crisis. Like, our streets have been pretty violent of late, and so it's certainly, one could understand why there would be choices to move more quickly or safely on a sidewalk. I'm not saying it's legal or appropriate, but it's kind of all connected. Maria, I can tell you really have something you want to say. Thank you for being here as usual.
Thank you. I just want to know who is educating the pedestrian and the bicycles riders about, the rules and regulations, because I think that we need to know the rights of the people who are riding all these, motor vehicles, and also the rights of the pedestrian. We don't know sometimes people riding on the sidewalk or in the middle, and also some of the signs that are not really clear of what is happening. So sometimes, you have to go around looking, sideways or looking from the back and seeing when you hear a bicycle or someone riding. So I'm just not really sure how we're going to educate both sides to make sure that everybody is safe.
Right. All right. This is what I want to do. I want to move to Allegra and then to Dave Tom with comments, but I do want to come back, Lyle, to this conversation about sidewalks. So Maria, I'm not like, I do want to come back to it, but let's just hold for a minute. To just, because I think we have some Greenway specific comments.
That's okay.
As well.
Thank you.
So I think next is Dave and then Allegra.
Sure.
Yeah, I think.
Yep. Okay, I'm back. So I don't think we should give up on the taking a lane from the Henry Hudson idea, because that idea just never seemed to get the attention with the state of the city. They just sort of blew it off. I think you're going to see now that the Greenway is actually closed that there's going to be a lot of attention that is now going to shine a light on that, and there might still be a chance to push that. The TV stations have started reporting tonight on the Greenway closure. And the thing with the highway suggestion is you could do it in like 3 days, because it's Jersey barriers and pretty simple stuff since it's adjacent to the existing path. It totally segregates any issues of people going on sidewalks or anything like that. And the numbers work, right? I mean, we know it's an undeniable fact that it does not impact drivers to take that lane, because the capacity of the 2 lanes is greater than any traffic count experienced by that road over the last 10 years. The data is out there, and it tells you that. Plus, we all know, right? We've all seen when there was a lane closed, when the retaining wall was being rebuilt, when there was a lane closed, when the bridge was being rebuilt. The fact that there's no more toll plaza means there's no more backups or queues. So to me, the best energy would be spent on trying to say, look at the mess you've created. It's not too late. Let's get an answer from the state, which we've never actually received, and try to make as much noise as possible to see if that option is still out there. I don't think it's workable to work on sidewalks or signage or education or whatnot. I think keeping the Greenway users on the Greenway and keeping city pedestrians and vehicles on Broadway is the best solution and the only solution. There's just no space or infrastructure to do otherwise, unless someone wants to get really aggressive and battle the 34th precinct for parking spots and create bike lanes and things that just aren't going to happen. So anyways, that's my thought, is to focus energies on, okay, you tried the detour. It was immediately a failure. It's not too late. This project's going to go on 4 months is not realistic, right? Parks has never finished a project on time. DOT's never finished a project on time. It's going to be till 2023. So, we should see what we can do.
Yeah. And my statement is by no means like your vision. It was brilliant and elegant, and we resolved on it. And by not mentioning it, it's only that, while I do think you're right, it would take, a few heartbeats to get it implemented. I don't think a state and city bureaucracy would be willing to just trot out with Jersey barriers. And I just feel like that's like a multi-month process, like if they were to put it on the docket. But I'll absolutely sign up for trying to figure out, what's up and is there any hope to get that sort of raised. Now, while I am going to put you in the hot seat, I know this is a bit above your pay grade, but do you have anything that you can say from the DOT side about all of this? I mean, it does feel like, I understand it's a New York State highway, but you guys kind of operated here. So if you guys thought it could work, like what would stand between that? And then also, sort of, did DOT have anything you're willing to say on the record about, like, you cannot send bicyclists down Broadway? Like, it's not an answer.
You mean, well, first you mean in regards to the lane on the Henry Hudson, is that what you mean, as far as the first part of that question?
Yeah, the first part on the, yes.
I wouldn't know what we would do as far as taking lane up to Henry Hudson. It's a question I can bring back. But there is nothing I can say about it. Tonight, I'm not sure if it was discussed on my end. I don't really have much information as far as this project in general. Again, this is a parks project. This isn't a DOT project. As far as the greenway and where the detours are, as far as I know, Parks and their contractors did put the detour together. DOT was able to review Parks's plan, but Parks didn't give DOT enough time to review or explore alternative options. So the option we pretty much had is the one that's currently been decided upon. DOT did review, and like I said, given this as pretty much the option that was presented by Parks, we tried to work with them, given the time constraints that we had. I don't know if there would be any other alternatives. I know that theoretically it's supposed to be a 4-month project. Again, my suggestion would be to speak with the Parks Committee or the Parks Department. I wasn't really privy to much of the conversation, again, because this isn't a DOT project. So, the only thing I can do now is pretty much listen to the comments and concerns and bring them back to my colleagues in Parks. But, as far as any, potential, plans for anything on the Hudson Parkway, or any changes to the current design of the greenway or the detour, like I said, I have no new information to provide. I can just hand back any comments or questions that you have, and send them up the chain pretty much.
Lyle, when the detour was assessed, was DOT aware of what we just heard tonight, that now on a lot of summer weekends we'll also be sending dozens of shuttle buses up and down that route because of the MTA project?
When I said that, as this isn't a DOT project, there's a lot of information I wasn't privy to. Like I said, I can ask that question, but I honestly don't have the answer.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't want to have a back and forth, Dave, but second, we all know, there's no way that one went from the silo and the MTA's project to DOT to Parks to all of that. But I think we should bring this up at Parks next week. Again, I normally don't go, but I will go next week. I have sent a follow-up, Lyle, up the chain a bit based on some communications that Dave has done over time. I just don't, I mean, it's a shame that Parks got to DOT late, but this doesn't, there's no, it's just, that's, you might as well just say there's no alternative given when you're saying people this is your option. But maybe Parks can, I don't know, give up some of the real estate in the park to, give a path to the bikes or something. I don't know. Allegra?
Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Yeah, so I think, Dave's proposed solution with the Jersey barriers on the Henry Hudson Parkway is the simplest, easiest to implement, but I have to say, as a civil servant myself, the bureaucracy seems great in trying to accomplish that. But I think that whatever the community board decides or has a resolution tonight, it should, I posted in the Q&A, since there's no chat, go back to that resolution from April 2021, where Community Board 12 CC'd a note to not only the Parks Department, but also Department of Transportation that says, we need to consider the Greenway link and keep that intact. And while it's really convenient, I guess, to pass this on to Parks, cycling has become a mode of transportation that, people rely on, and they rely on more and more for a variety of reasons, notwithstanding like traffic concerns, COVID concerns, climate concerns. There's a million reasons why we want to rely on cycle routes as ways to get to work and to get to school. And it undermines the whole process when you destroy a vital link. And so I would like to see like a resolution coming out tonight to one, reinvestigate this potential patch, borrowing a lane in the Henry Hudson Parkway. I'd also like to see, the Department of Transportation had a city council rule that came up in 2019 with Carlina Rivera, where she said, look, if you're going to be doing work on the streets and take away a safe bike lane, you construction crews, you got to provide for at least a safe alternative. Otherwise, we'll revoke your permits. And the fact that the Greenway happens to be on Parks land has removed this consideration, which the city council, it feels kind of like a technicality. Like when you're using the cycle route, you don't necessarily know, like, am I on Parks land? Am I on Department of Transportation land? The back end of who's issuing the permits to which construction companies shouldn't really matter. What should matter is that you have a continuous, reliable cycle route. And so I would like to see a resolution saying that cycling is transportation, and cycling transportation, it should be maintained at the safety levels that we come to expect. My kids are 10 and 12. I'm not taking them on the streets. New York City statute is a little bit ambiguous about whether it's legal, like what the age is of teenagers that can ride legally on the sidewalk. But I think they'd be pretty traumatized seeing me getting hit by a bus while they're on the sidewalk. So I mean, they have effectively turned that route off. And while it's nice to think about going up and cycling in Fort Tryon Park, the truth of the matter is, if you've ever hiked up from Ann Loftus Playground, that is not a route the cyclists are going to easily be able to take. I mean, really, it's not a route that's easy to take. Take the proposed detour route is hilly. It's hillier than going on the Greenway. You have to go up topography and then back down again to get into, because Broadway and 181st Street is actually at a higher elevation than the entryway is to the Greenway. And that means the cyclists, you can't even kind of keep up with traffic unless you are super fit. Like you are going to be a sitting duck, dodging trucks on the main freight route of Northern Manhattan. And it's vital to keep that transportation link intact. I'd like to know what happened to the resolution that y'all sent in 2021. I guess I don't understand fully how civics work in New York City, but I thought that, going to the community board, telling them there's a problem, planning solutions, coming together. I mean, Dave put together really very intricate rendering.
I get where you're going. I hear you. So we have a resolution where this isn't a reso item for tonight, but with the resolution that we have, I think we have something that we can work from. I think understanding, and even if I agree that it shouldn't be up to the cyclist to understand like who owns it and whose project and whose land and all of that stuff, that said, it is New York City's Parks project. So I think we should discuss this again at Parks and see, because it is their project. And so ultimately, I think that's where this needs to be pointed. And if they want to do something, maybe they will decide to do so. I certainly feel like, boy, I wish I had pushed harder on sort of how this resolution was being socialized or not in the agencies that received it. But Dave's point, this is, you know, it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be dealing with it now, but we are, and hopefully with the attention on it in this moment, we can get some sort of feedback.
The now, what we can do is do the same thing we do for if you want to put it on surface streets, Department of Transportation, you don't want to deal with New York State Transportation, you can't do the Lighthouse Link. We're down to just those orange and white water-filled barriers that they put up when they take away the sidewalk. That's what we're.
Yeah. Okay. Deborah?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
So as I said in the chat, does this meeting also address issues east of Broadway? Specifically along Amsterdam Avenue, all the way up, I would say 188th, 87th, all the way up through what is it, Fort George Park there. So would that be included in this meeting? Could I speak to issues that are important here?
Absolutely. But I'm sorry, and the issue again, say it one more time. I didn't catch.
The issues have to do with the traffic along Amsterdam Avenue. They have to do with drag racing. And in fact, I have bulleted everything. And if you allow me to read it, I think it will very quickly describe what the issues are.
Okay.
Is that
So,
right?
well, absolutely. Just give me 1 moment, because I mean, there is a safety project that only part of it is going into place, but that is being implemented from the 188th. I know that leaves a big gap, 181 to 188. And as I'm sure you heard a few minutes ago, there's some of this, to the extent that it touches NYPD, this committee really can't speak to that, but you absolutely, this is the form, it's for CB12. It's not restricted to streets on one side of Broadway or the other. So go for it. What's your surname, Deborah?
Barrett, B-A-R-R-E-T-T.
Thank you for being here. Go ahead.
Sure. And you use the phrase interconnected crisis, and I'm going to adopt that phrase if you don't mind, because it does, although some of the issues that I will address or raise have nothing to do with transportation, but they are connected. So let me just read what I've written. So just bear with me for a moment. Drug dealing attracts buyers. Bodegas are hubs for dealing. 190th and Audubon, 189th and St. Nick, the 191st Street station, additional ones further south on Audubon. Dealers, buyers, cars park 2 and 3 deep outside bodegas. Pedestrians must venture out into traffic to safely cross. Parked cars suddenly lurch out, endangering pedestrians. No ticketing of illegally parked or idling cars. I saw that once, but I've lived here 5 years. Amsterdam Avenue is a magnet for cars and motorbike drag racing. There's been no permanent solution. Through the community council, we have finally gotten the NYPD to put up barricades over the weekend. And in fact, they're out there this evening. However, these are temporary. There are no speed bumps, no cameras, and there is no strategy from any department to ticket or arrest these drivers. The racing, the car racing and motorbike racing attracts groups and crowds to party and watch. There is no on-site enforcement of speed limit and no ticketing, no arrest. Schools and playgrounds. Amsterdam and Audubon are home to an elementary school and high school. Basketball courts and playground are situated on Amsterdam between 188 and 190th. Majority of pedestrian traffic are children and seniors. Streets as outdoor clubs. Amsterdam Avenue has been hijacked by partygoers who double and triple park, occupy portable chairs, smoke hookahs, and set up boom boxes with amplifiers that continue well past midnight. There is no oversight of such nighttime activities. The result is that northbound traffic are forced into the southbound lane. Such unregulated, illegal activities contribute to an atmosphere of outsiders controlling the residents. We are at their mercy. So it is, again, it is, all of this is interconnected, but there is no enforcement, there's no ticketing, there's nothing. I'm not sure how much the DOT and the Parks Department can work together. And I have to tell you that the 34th precinct has always backpedaled these issues. There's always excuses as to why they can't do any of this. For instance, they often say that it's the DOT has to do it, it's Park Department that has to do it. We are not babysitters, et cetera. But the last meeting that we had, there were so many people who attended the 34th precinct community council meeting and really pushed back. So we need some help.
Well, Deborah, thank you for coming to the meeting. Well, we can't kind of make the streets do all the work when there's no enforcement of the traffic regulations. There's a limit to how much work the streets can do. This said, and Lyle, I'd like you to jump in if I'm misspeaking, but the whole stretch is one that DOT is looking at. The 188th and north stretch around the top of the hill, and down Fort George to back down to St. Nicholas, obviously has been looked at and has safety changes coming online that sort of came out of their school area because of the number of schools up there. And we don't know when sort of the next phase, so 181 to 188 comes, but I'm kind of hoping the DOT is back in the fall. So for people that aren't aware, June is the last meeting. We take a summer break and we're back in September. So I'm hoping that sometime in the fall this gets picked up. Lyle, not to put you on the spot again, but is there any new information on when you all might be taking a look and ready for the next phase for Amsterdam?
Ideally, just to piggyback off what you were saying, correct. The plan is to essentially work our way from north to south down Amsterdam, pretty much from Fort George Hill down to 181st. So we started off pretty much from 188th around the curve up north to Fort George Hill, and that project is underway. We do have some changes that are coming and should be already on the ground pretty much in that area. But ideally, the plan is to come further south of 188th in order to do some more traffic calming measures between there and 181st. There are a few more schools in that area, including Yeshiva. So ideally, the plan is to reach out to those schools as well to have the same conversations we did with Isabella and with George Washington High School and their students to see if we can ideally do something along the same lines along that stretch. I think conversations should start ideally during the summer, so pretty much in the time of the hiatus. I'm not sure if we'll have anything as far as a proposal in the fall, but if I'm not mistaken, I think we'll be working on it sometime during the summer. So we should have some updates to give in the fall. I'm not sure if it'll be a presentation, but we should have some updates and at least a clearer timeline by the fall. And if anything comes about before September, we'll definitely keep you in the loop during the summer if anything comes up prior to that.
And can you tell me?
Sorry, Deborah. Sorry, we don't kind of have a back and forth thing, but so. Oh, now I lost my train of thought, but people should know this is something CB12 has already resolved on the whole stretch. So from the board action standpoint, that has been done. Oh, I know what I was going to say, Lyle. So I understanding that some of this sort of comes up through the agency, through school safety and such like that. And it's obviously great that you're doing the reach out and having those conversations with a number of stakeholders, but just one thing is we want to make sure that we don't lose the opportunity for non-school, the non-institutional entities in the community to sort of weigh in. I mean, again, understanding that we heard from the community loud and clear that it's really, really unsafe on Amsterdam and because of the drag racing, et cetera. And, but just, you know, to find ways to keep the general public, you know, able to give feedback. You know, we welcome any opportunities. I will say there was quite the spectacular wreck, and I don't think anyone got injured, thankfully, but it took out a bunch of cars with somebody lost control doing the donuts. And then they took out like a line of cars. But yeah, so it was a big old mess. I feel like that was about a week ago. And then there's pictures from sort of hundreds and hundreds of people late night convening in the area along High Bridge. So, you know, I just think more reasons to connect with public safety as well.
I was not to cut you off, Debbie. I was going to say, you know, we can absolutely take feedback, you know, back if there are any suggestions or comments or questions that, you know, the committee or any residents have. You know, now's the time, you know, to, you know, throw them at us. As far everything's on the table pretty much as far as, you know, everything south of 188th. So, you know, we're talking to the schools if there are other stakeholders. So I agree with you. If you have other stakeholders, you know, depending on the schools that you feel we need to talk to as well, by all means, just let me know and we can reach out to them. Any feedback we receive and any suggestions we get, you know, as far as the continuation of working down Amsterdam will take. So any and all suggestions, you know, I say bring them on and, you know, we'll definitely sort through them and, you know, take them as they come in.
Okay, great. And before I move to, we have Eileen King and then Anna Siegel. I do want to say, and I'm sorry because I just was like, why do I know this person's face? And then I thought, he's not CB12, is he? Jacob Banas is on the call as well, in addition to James Bosley, a newer member. So welcome. And as people are shopping, I do hope you will select traffic and transportation. We're down a few members and I really would love to have you join. And Emily too. I don't know if you're shopping, you've been around a little longer, but come join. Eileen?
Yes, hello, my name is Eileen King, and I have really been attentive to Community Board 12 for the last 5 years. And over those 5 years, I have brought up this terrible, critical, unhealthy, unsafe conditions. I'm asking, is it Lyle, to really consider north of 188th Street, 188th Street, all the way around to where it meets St. Nicholas Avenue is a no man's land. It's not, there's parks on one side, it's the back of Isabella, it's the back of George Washington High School. It is, and this is where I'm linking to transportation and traffic. It's a roadway that invites. It's the most desirable roadway for this kind of activity. And this over the 5 years, every summer, it has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And so the link to Fort George Hill is that it's up Fort George Hill, around onto Fort George Avenue, donuts, all of that. It is ideal for all of that. So we appreciate the precinct closing it off, but it just shifts some of the activity elsewhere. Second point is that we're trapped. We're residents, but we're trapped between police. If we go to public safety, they're frustrated. They can't do it. We come to you. It's enforcement. We are caught in a catch-22 in which our health and our safety is not being addressed. I mean that. It's not being addressed. And so I'm asking all of you in the Community Board 12, there has to be overlap. There has to be. And it has to be, you have to work together to figure this out. And it's a desperate plea to make that section, Fort George Avenue into Amsterdam down to 188th Street, inhospitable to this kind of activity. Thank you.
Well, just to advise, we're DOT is currently working in that area. We literally have a project in that area, the exact area from 188th around the curve to Fort George Hill. I mentioned earlier that DOT is looking at that entire stretch from north to south to 181st Street. So I'm not sure if you've been in that area recently, but from 188th, but we've been working up there for the past few weeks, doing some changes to the streets up there, trying to narrow the roads in order to make them a little less desirable for speeding and donuts. That being some concrete work, there's some bus bulbs that have been installed, some pedestrian islands, so that way there's a little bit more of a shorter refuge for people to cross the street by 189th and 190th. And also that hardened barrier from the concrete would also ideally prevent donuts from occurring. There are parking protected bike lanes that are currently being installed along that stretch from 188th around to Fort George Avenue, which should give extra protection to bikers as they're going around that stretch across, or sorry, should I say adjacent to High Bridge Park. And we're doing some changes to the parking, to lane markings. There's a lot going on in that area. Like I said, we're up there as we speak. We've been up there for the past couple of weeks. So if you haven't been in that area, we're definitely making those changes because we've heard from the community board, from residents. I received a lot of the calls during the pandemic from residents up there. And I forgot to mention also, we work with Isabella, as well as the kids, at the high school in order to get feedback. So, we've taken a lot of, I've taken a lot of calls, a lot of emails, and we've definitely heard from the community as far as it concerns. Ideally, the reason why we're up there now is because we know that during the summer, it's going to get a little crazier with the speed, with the recklessness. So we're trying to work as quickly as we can in order to do these installations. So that way we can ideally anticipate what hopefully will not come with these installations. So we are in that area currently. Hopefully we should be wrapping up later on during the summer, but we've definitely heard you and we're trying to make those changes literally as we speak.
We certainly hear the frustration. I think that I certainly agree that there's opportunity, and we don't mean to make people feel like they're passed around, but to make sure that we're acting more in concert because this has been such an intractable problem. Traffic Enforcement Command does not come to community board meetings. However, the stuff on Amsterdam, I think often isn't really so much, it is more of a precinct issue. But the community board cannot compel the precinct, we can try to communicate things forward, but we can't compel anybody to do anything.
I just say, not to cut you off, Deb, I just want to say, I also want to say, we do, speak with the local precincts. We do have conversations with them. Any concerns that come to me that are essentially enforcement concerns, we do pass them along to the precinct. But again, DOT is an enforcement agency. We don't ticket, we don't tow. All we can do is pass the information and your concerns along to the local precincts who do have that enforcement capacity for them to follow up. But we do keep in contact with the precincts. The precincts reach out to us, about similar concerns. So we are in contact. It's just again, there's but so much that DOT can do as far as enforcement. That's up to the local precincts.
Anna Siegel.
Hey, sorry to piggyback. Actually, I'm not sorry to piggyback off of the last two, Deborah and Eileen. But I had a couple of questions for Lyle. Obviously, to Community Board 12, this is a huge issue, right? Like half of Washington Heights goes to High Bridge Park. So I know I hear a little bit of frustration that it's being brought up again, but it is a serious problem still. Lyle, I have a dog and I walk my dog on that stretch at least 3 times a day. So I really appreciate the work that you're putting in there, because I know I was at that DOT meeting where you proposed the plan. It sounds like you guys have some really great solutions. However, is there a way to disseminate that information is my first question for you. My next question for Lyle specifically is, how extensively have you contacted the local precinct about this issue? I have to tell you, you're so right. It is an enforcement problem. I understand that you can't, you're not an enforcement agency, but it is so heavily an enforcement issue that it's like you can install those bike lanes, but let's be real here. Firstly, if you're not going to be done until the end of the summer, it's not a little bit of a problem. That is going to blow up again. That Amsterdam Avenue is going to blow up again. You said a little, it's going to be a lot. It's just something now needs to be addressed. So again, curious how extensively you brought up that issue. To Debbie's point, I think before, that she made, like, the street can only do so much. That is very applicable here. And then my last question is, I'm not sure who this would be aimed to, but I want to know, who is it that designates street parking? If there's like a specific department, if there is, like, who is responsible for that? Overall, I don't know who that question would be aimed to. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks for coming. I'm sorry you're living with all of that. And DOT part, their parking, so a big part of the conversion above 188th is a complete redesign of the parking spots, where they are, the type they are, etc.
Yeah. I'll try to, well, as far as the presentation goes, if anyone hasn't seen the proposal, it is available on DOT's website. After we do our presentations, usually within 24 to 48 hours, there should be a link available on the DOT website where you can review the plan. In regards to our communication with local precincts, for most projects, if not all, we do try to reach out to the precincts in order to review our projects with them, because they will have, again, as from an enforcement perspective, we like to give them a heads up to at least know what's potentially to come. Again, we have these conversations with the precincts, when they're available, and we work with them. We let them know what is to come. Ultimately, once it goes into the ground, you're absolutely right. It's pretty much a matter of making sure that those areas are cleared. But it's not for lack of trying, at least on DOT's part, at least as far as having those conversations with local precincts ahead of time to let them know what's coming, to let them know if there need to be signage, put up in order to assist us as far as keeping the area clear. And as far as any potential regulations or signage changes. And I guess to answer the third question, DOT, depending on the situation, is in charge of, I guess, parking. The one exception I would say would be for alternate side of the street parking rules, where street cleaning is in effect. Those are determined by sanitation. We just put up the signs, but I would say most other things, as far as, I guess, the assignment of parking, at least from a signage perspective, would be under DOT's umbrella. If those answered your questions, I hope those did.
Yeah, they did. I added in the Q&A just like an offshoot. I know there's no crosstalk, but so my concern is hearing what you just said about the precinct, is telling them about what's going on. Again, it is so heavily an enforcement issue. Telling them what's going on is going to reinforce their lack of enforcement, because they will hear about those.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger issue is, like, this, there is an enforcement issue, and it is massive. And so we all need to go to do what you have all been doing, but I would say go to the Public Safety Committee, go to, as you have, 34th, the
Yeah.
34th precinct council and all those as you have. But I mean, the, but it's sort of who has sway. I mean, a mayor has sway. And I hope that filling the room, as it sounds like you all did at a recent thing, hopefully has impact if people are really hitting their, like they just really had it. But all I'm saying, I'm not trying to kick the can, is it's not this committee. Like, we do not have it. We have the least of the channel to the precinct. And I don't think, it's not like DOT has a better one. They have a thing that they need to do when the things come, but I think whatever the precinct, I would imagine, is doing or not doing doesn't have to do with, a project coming. I think it's bigger than that. It's all, and I can't speak for what that might be. I do have one more thing that I wanted to touch upon tonight, in terms of oldish business, or business we've never really sort of tackled head on. And that is sort of where things at or aren't at with the city's permanent outdoor dining program. So the things are largely in the hands of the New York City Council, but yet we're left with a huge amount of restaurant infrastructure in the roadbed, sitting there from the crisis times, and until the city council takes action, that's sort of occupying our streets. So that's on one hand. I shared with you, and I'm sorry I didn't share it with you when I received it, some work that one downtown community board had done, that has like a huge amount of, restaurants and whatnot. So they had, that they've done some resolutions and some work on this. And I'm not, and I know we spoke about it as a committee, and my feeling was, like, if somebody wanted to take this on behalf of the committee, and at the time I couldn't take it on, to take the lead on it. I think now that it's really, the action is with city council and not really with DOT, in terms of making the policy, there's sort of limited, it sort of closes off one area that we could sort of take action. But so I just want to sort of put that out there, but I would like to see us in September figure out what we do want to do in this space. And I see it lodged in, we had a session on the DOT's streets plan writ large, and there was a lot of talk about trade-offs that we make between all the competing interests that want a piece of the roadbed. It's a very sensitive topic up here. Always, everything having to do with use of the curbside. And so, but it feels like then there's this other program that doesn't enter the trade-off. But I would like to, again, sort of contend with that part of it and sort of where it fits in with the DOT streets plan. That then you have this program, and sort of how does that fit into the trade-offs we're trying to make with this increasingly competitive environment on the curb, with the need for city bike stations and loading zones and parking for people and parking for businesses, et cetera, et cetera. Separately, at Cascaya Plaza, it came up at a recent meeting, I think at executive, Sally Fisher had brought up some issues about just sort of what's happening there. And we've also heard from Dave Tom on this, and so there have been comments like it's sort of that we should probably check in just in the way we did with Haven, albeit belatedly, about how things are going and what's happening, and just with a focus on, this is public space. It's not restaurant seating space in its entirety, but it's been hard to get clarity on what it is. Like, if it's not a regular DOT plaza, then, and it's some dining thing, but then we're not calling it that, and that dining thing doesn't really exist. And then what are they, what is the maintenance partner operating under? So I think we should probably have a check, have that on the agenda, if not in September, then in October. But I feel like we've kind of done very little, and we should, I'd like to have some sort of conversation in the new season about this. Yeah. Yeah. Dave, do you want to just say a few words about what you've been tracking, or do you feel like that summary covered it?
No, I think you covered it very well. I mean, the question for Dyckman Plaza posed to DOT, and we've had a couple of presentations with them at this committee, and lots of people attended them and watched them, and some of those presentations even conflicted themselves, where it's all public, no part of it's for private, but we can't really explain the rules. So I guess the question just to Lyle is, what is his understanding of the status? Is it a plaza program plaza, or is it an open restaurant, an open street still, or something else? And if it's something else, when will we learn what the something else is? Because it is great to talk about in October, but 99% of the activity happens between now and then.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Lyle has anything to share.
And I misspoke before. I've sent the communication to DOT on those questions. But Lyle, do you know anything, or do you have any information about that plaza?
I don't have any new information, but this plaza is under DOT's plaza program. It's considered an official plaza, at least by DOT standards. It's run a little bit differently because of the maintenance partner that we have, but it's an official plaza in DOT's eyes. Our public spaces division, which runs our plaza citywide, is overseeing this area. I'll reach out to them to see if there's any additional information they can provide. I know that we've been still having conversations on our end, but I can try to see if we can move the needle to see if we can get some answers for you guys. But yes, this is an official plaza under DOT's eyes.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever. I put it in an email today, but I mean, one, then put it on the list that's on the website. And two, if you can, if you can get us connected, me and the public spaces, et cetera, just to sort of understand. I imagine you guys have spend extra time when something launches, but just to give us a view, to give me a view. Summer break of what that's looked like, and sort of what you're seeing and what you're working through and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely touch base either later this week or sometime during the summer. Absolutely, we can definitely have that conversation. We'll be in touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's a very good thing, but I don't want to turn this into a bad thing.
I understand, but I got you.
Sally.
I guess my concern is the summer, because that's when everything seems to go to hell. And so if we wait till September to sort of figure out what's going on there, it's probably too late. And why I was alarmed is I was down there a couple of weeks ago, and the only people I saw using it were the dirt bikes and motorcyclists, sort of running races, and there were no tables out. So
what time of day?
During the afternoon, all afternoon. There were no tables. There's just, it's just like an empty streetway. that people who could make it through the barriers were using to race and make a shortcut, I guess, between Seaman Riverside and Broadway. But it was pretty alarming.
If there are issues as far as, say, dirt bikes or any vehicles in the space, there shouldn't be. That's pedestrian space except for the, the stretch for the bike lane. You can let us know, and we can alert the maintenance partner just for on their radar, and see if they can at least put some extra eyes in that space in order to make sure that it's a little more regulated. But I'll take that back to my colleagues and let them know. And you're saying this is during the middle of the afternoon, like any particular days, or just on weekends?
Yes, weekend during the day.
Okay.
Yeah, and Sally, just because the committee's not discussing it, I mean, I still work. So, yeah.
Yeah,
and I know how to reach
out to me too. I
yeah,
mean,
and I do appreciate that you surfaced that issue, Sally, as I do appreciate with Dave. Jim?
I just want to share the observation that I was there around, I think 1 o'clock on Sunday, or maybe it was 11 o'clock. I forget what, I think it was probably closer to 11 o'clock. And they were actually setting up for a concert. There was a stage being put down, there were speakers being set up. So that was happening last Sunday morning.
Yeah, I mean, and the one good thing about the Haven, I think that we all enjoyed, was like hearing about the programming. So that was another reason I was appreciative of the nudge that Sally gave us. We should do that with Cascade and Dykeman as well,
My bunion actually disappeared from walking more. Here's how.
If you're struggling with a bunion
Let me just, we have Jennifer Bristol. Sorry, give me 1 sec. Okay, you should be good.
Hey there, I just want to echo what Sally said. I walk my dogs there sometimes 2 times a day during that area. And the tables there's no regular schedule. You can go there at 9 a.m. and they won't be there. You can go there at 12 p.m. They're not there. And I have witnessed the same thing Sally has witnessed multiple times. There are no tables out there. And then the electric bikes and mopeds and motorcycles go through on the bike lane and then do wheelies as they go through, which is super dangerous. And it's really sad that there isn't a consistent schedule. I've tweeted DOT and Carmen about it, and no one really had an answer to it. I took a picture of 12 o'clock on a Saturday, and there were no tables out, which also means there's no garbage out. So the garbage hasn't been cleaned since the night before, and that the garbage pails aren't out. So if you're even walking there and you might have a cup of coffee, or your dog goes to the bathroom, or your kid drops something, you want to throw it out, there's nowhere easily to dispose of it. So I don't think it's good. I'm so excited about it, but if you can't say, hey, let's go meet at the plaza to go have a cup of coffee, or meet somebody to meet outdoors where it's safe in COVID times, it's just really, why bother? You might as well go to the park or go somewhere else. So I think it's really wasted space. And I don't even drive cars, but if I was a car owner, I'd be really angry that parking spots were given up for a space that isn't continuously used on a regular basis. So that's all I have. I just want to echo what Sally said, and I'm there pretty much every day. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So Lyle, you're capturing all that. Yes?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm taking these down and I'm going to pass this back, and I'll see if we can get some answers for you.
Great. Right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here tonight and all the participation we had. I wish it was some less frustrating issues. And I will, and we would just push forward. I guess I have a lot of follow-ups myself. So with that, does anybody have, I don't have anything else, I think. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, even though, these meetings won't take place during the summer, DOT is never closed either. So you can always reach out to me, either through the community board or via email or phone. And we can always follow up, during the summer. So the conversation never ends. So if you need to reach out to us for anything, by all means, please let me know, and we'll definitely see how we can help.
All right. And right. So what Lyle, we'll let's just keep track of the bike issue and the plaza issue over the coming week.
No problem. Yeah, we'll be in touch. You and I will talk. No problem.
All right. So just as a reminder for all interested, next June 14th, next week, is the parks. The parks meeting, there's a lot that's actually pretty streets related on the agenda. And I'll look forward to seeing everybody back in September. I definitely want to hear from committee members about your ideas for things that you want to tackle in the new year. All of a sudden now we have another set of hands. Ted Gallagher, I'm going to give you the last go.
Hello, I live on Riverside Drive in Inwood. I moved in 1982 when I was young. I'm now not young. I sometimes have trouble with my packages climbing the hill. I'm sure you all know the elevation from Broadway to Henshaw Street is, it's not an insignificant climb. So I now hack that by going on the flatland along Dykeman Street until I get to Henshaw, and I come into my building on the back end, which cuts the elevation required in half. Henshaw Street is steep, 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 but I come in the back door, so I cut my travel time up the hill in half. The problem is Henshaw and Dykeman doesn't have a pedestrian crosswalk connecting the north side of Dykeman to the south side of Dykeman. There is a pedestrian crosswalk connecting Henshaw Street from the west to the east and east to west, but I would use that, except the block between Payson and Henshaw has parking garages and also car washes. And there is oftentimes 3 cars parked side by side on the sidewalk on that block. So it's impossible to use as a pedestrian because you have to often go out into the street to get around that commercial parking on the sidewalk. So I'm asking for a dedicated pedestrian crosswalk to be constructed between the Park House in Payson Playground, that side of the street, to the Manhattan mini storage side of Dykeman. At least give me one so that I can walk, because you've got southbound Henry Hudson Parkway traffic coming off of the highway onto Dykeman Street because it's backed up. And those people are competing with the people coming down Henshaw Street, all trying to access Inwood. And it's like they're playing chicken with each other. And try to be a pedestrian with bags and everything, trying to cross that street, it's impossible. So please help me. I'm in my 60s now. It's only going to get worse. And I don't want to die on Dykeman and Henshaw Street.
We don't want you.
What you can do, if anything, if you can send me, I'll put my email in the chat. If you can send me.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow what you said because you cut out.
Oh, sorry, I was saying, I'll put my email in the chat. If you can send me an email with that request and your concerns, I can forward that request to my colleagues at DOT for their review. And we can follow up that way if need be.
Well, what is the practical likelihood? I mean, you're a professional, you have a lifetime of experience.
Mr. Gallagher, actually, we're not going to do a back and forth.
Okay.
You've
I'm just saying, is this
you've
like
raised
a-
an issue, you've made a request, and then, so Lyle, if you want to drop your email in the chat, and then also Chanel, would you mind dropping in either your or Ebenezer's email so that Mr. Gallagher can include that as well, because then
I'm not sure if I can access the chat, but Chanel has my email address, so she can.
I'm sorry, I meant the Q&A. Hold on.
The Q&A is better because I don't know. I don't see a chat button on my
We don't
screen.
have chats on these meetings.
Oh.
But the community board has my contact information. So if you want to reach out to the community board, or Chanel has my email, Debbie has my email, we can definitely connect that way.
Well, can you please put it in the Q&A right now and then I'll write it down.
Yeah, I don't have access. That would be, I think, I'm not sure if I can. I can
Well,
try.
what is your name and title, sir?
My name is Lyle Blackwood.
Spell that.
Lyle is the first name. Last name is Blackwood, Blackwood.
And you work for?
Department of Transportation. I'm the Northern Manhattan Borough Planner for DOT.
Northern Manhattan Borough Planner. Okay, good. Okay, well, call the community board tomorrow and ask for your email address.
Right. And then just when you call the community board, just also make sure they're on the list as well, because it's something that we could potentially follow up with at what's called the district service cabinet meeting. So thank you for raising the issue.
Okay.
And okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn. Or second.
Sorry, did we just get a motion from our attendee or somebody on the committee?
You're right. You're right about that. Eager attendee.
I
All right,
appreciate you,
I'll
Deborah.
make a motion to adjourn.
All right, and I will second it. Thanks again to everybody for all your hard work this past year. Lots of work remains. Be in touch if you need anything. Join the committee if you're shopping, and I'll see you all in September.